Okay, some sincere advice, semi-sincere, a little fun, but sincere advice for all the lyricists who are out there posting on songwriter forums. More or less the same thing, which goes something like this. I'm a lyricist, I'm really good, I've written hundreds of songs, but I can't sing or write music. Is there anyone out there uh, who wants to write music for my lyrics, which are brilliant, but I haven't posted them here for fear that they'll be stolen? Um, there's also sort of the follow-up, which is a tone of or a subtext or follow-up, this tone of frustration that no one's getting back to them, no one seems to be responding. So here's my insight in sort of 4 C's to help you through. Um, so it starts with commitment. The major hesitation I would have to reaching out to anybody in that kind of situation is that I fear a lack of commitment from them. I fear that I'll put a bunch of work in and then it will just end right there. Because that has actually happened to me more than once. And I've kind of learned my lesson, which is that, hey, if I don't know this person, like this idea that I'm going to reach out, and we're going to take that first step together, and that we'll just kind of judge it from there, is, as it turns out, a lot of work for me and then a big disappointment. And I don't really need your lyrics and I don't really need to collaborate. It's just kind of ideally kind of fun to do, but it's not fun to put in the work for nothing. And so somehow you've got to bridge this, reaching out has to involve some steps where you make some commitment, and probably the best way to actually do that is to get to know the musician with whom you plan to collaborate. That for me has been the key. The collaborations that have actually worked are people who I know, who I've met, who we've had some interaction, and where we kind of get to the second C, which is chemistry. We somehow establish that we're kind of on the same page, personality wise, that we can, or artistically, and that C, we can communicate. There's so much communication that's necessary to do an effective collaboration, especially when you're in the position that these lyricists are espousing, which is that they're kind of at your musical mercy. They can't do it themselves, but they may have opinions. I've seen some collaborations that I've entered into that even had the first steps where it was, there was commitment and there was chemistry, but when the other half of the partnership isn't a musician or isn't, a songwriter and can't communicate about music in the same sense that I can, this can very quickly fall apart, because I can communicate about lyrics, but if you can't communicate about music, and if you can't communicate about your ideas, and if you can't kind of bridge that gap and work together, if the extent of your communication is I don't like that, then it doesn't quite do it for me, but you don't have anything else to say, it's not going to work. And then the final C is concession. If you're going to be in a collaboration and you are someone who is a collaborator with one arm tied behind your back, especially, but whatever the case may be, if you're reaching out in this kind of way and just trying to look for a collaborator, you need or strongly want a collaborator, you're going to need to understand that whoever you find is going to very much want to inject themselves into the finished product. And that means that you're going to have to concede some space. You're going to have to concede artistic space. You're going to have to concede other kinds of space. And as a lyricist, one of the first concessions you're going to need to recognize that you have to make, if you're a lyricist who can't write music, is that your lyrics probably need musicality polish. Like, they probably don't actually read well into a melody. They may not be consistent enough. If you aren't a musician, it is highly likely that you have not made them consistently organized in a way that will structure into a melody. And furthermore, whoever you're working with who's coming up with a melody may have a really great melody that just needs the words to tap dance a little bit differently. And that's one of the things that you may need to concede, is that you may need to do a rewrite for the melody. So those are some overarching concepts. And I would just say that, cold calling in this way and like hiding what you do, you're ultimately going to have to share. I mean, you're auditioning just as much for them as they are for you. So absolutely, you need to get to know somebody. You need to reach out. You need to find musicians who, maybe approach specific musicians whose work you admire on these forums, for instance, and say, hey, have you ever thought about, I really dig your stuff, and really listen and decide, hey, this is somebody whose music I like and whose music I think suits my sensibilities, rather than just thinking that you're going to, someone's going to reach out to you, respond, and then you're going to see what they do, and it doesn't do it for you. That's very frustrating. And I think that's why a lot of musicians won't respond to these kind of ads. Another reason they won't respond to your ad, in all honesty, is because you're not showing them the goods. No one is going to steal your lyrics. And your lyrics, in all likelihood, are not so super brilliant that someone's going to just take them. But if you can't be evaluated, then you're just one of 50 people I've seen post this exact same thing this week. And I mean, which of you should I respond to? Which of you is any good? You got to kind of show me something that catches my eye, that catches my interest, and makes me think, maybe I'm interested in working with this person. I have worked with lyricists before, even though I consider myself to be a very capable lyricist on my own. I have some friends who are also very capable lyricists. And specifically, the Sun House Branch project that I do, I work with a poet friend of mine who is not a lyricist per se, but is a great poet, and who gives me, raw material that's coming from a different voice than my own. And it works great. And it works great because we follow the 4 C's. We're committed to that project, both of us. We have great chemistry. We both have, mutual respect, and we dig what each other does. We communicate well. The back and forth of, I need this, or I need something, can you write me something that sort of covers this big theme or whatever. And we have, a healthy attitude of concession towards each other, that when Kat sends me those lyrics, he knows that I'm going to need to work with them. I'm going to need to massage them, and that's okay. And he knows that going in, just like I know going in, I'm not going to have total control over what we're talking about here. That's kind of, that's some decisions, Kat gets to make some decisions about, what we're going to say. I may get some decisions about how we say it in the final product. But yeah, so you got to have those 4 C's, and you got to make yourself clear, the sort of 5th C, and you got to show the goods. You got to reach out and put yourself out there in order to be evaluated if it's going to work out. So good luck to y'all. See you on the flip side.